Hello, welcome to Statecraft IAS and Social Perspectives Sociology in Newspaper series. In this series, we shall discuss daily news articles in sociological perspective and revise relevant sociology related UPSC mains concepts with the help of a newspaper on daily basis. In today's video, we have an article saying no need for a drastic population policy. Data from Assam and Uttar Pradesh show that fertility rates have been reducing over time. Now, this particular article is especially relevant for our population dynamics chapter in paper 2 of our syllabus. This article says the document on population projection published by the Union Ministry of Health and Family Welfare in 2019 said that UP will reach a replacement rate, that means the rate at which women give birth to enough babies to sustain population levels of 2.1 by 2025 and Assam by 2020. If the replacement fertility rate has already been achieved in Assam and will be achieved by 2025 in Uttar Pradesh, what is the need for any drastic population policy? This particular perspective or this particular point can be used in our paper 2 answers. The author says that there is no actual need of any population policy. Now we have already known that government of Uttar Pradesh has already brought population policy, and government of Assam is also trying to bring in one such policy. Now this author says by substantiating data from Union Ministry of Health and Family Welfare itself, says that there is no need for such a policy. He further says the need arises because population policy is an important weapon in the arsenal of the Hindutva brigade to attack the Muslim population in the country. The Assam Chief Minister's population army in Muslim areas and the Uttar Pradesh Chief Minister's many utterances prove this. This particular point can be used to link population dynamics chapter and politics and society chapter in our paper 2. Politics, we can say that population is being politicized in the country, and it is being used as a political tool to attract vote bank voters or to divide society, etc. This is one of the particular examples or classic examples of population control being politicized in the country. We have seen in the emergency wherein population control has been politicized. Here also we are seeing similar instances. Now, this article further says the point is that fertility rate does not depend on religion. It depends on socio-economic characteristics like education, income, maternal and child health conditions, and other associated factors. This is another important observation to note in our population dynamics chapter. That means fertility rate does not actually depend on religion. It depends on other socio-economic characteristics like education, income, maternal and child health conditions, etc. We have also seen, or we also know about uh, ex Chief Election Commissioner S.Y. Qureshi writing a book on Muslim population, breaking the myths on Muslim population. In that book also, Mr. Qureshi sir tried to break the myth and say that population or fertility rate does not actually depend on religion. It depends on socio-economic factors. We can quote that book also in our answers. In districts where Hindus have a high fertility rate, the fertility rate of Muslims is also high. This cannot be explained by religion, but by socio-economic factors in these districts. Now, this is a substantiation of this argument. The preceding discussion pointed out that the population control policy of imposing a two-child norm is not supported by data. However, it can have other unintended consequences. Now, in R.K. Merton's perspective, we can say that this is a latent function of population policy. Government has brought in population policy with manifest function to control population. Now, but latent function of that is that social inequalities or social divisions, conflicts in society, communalism, etc. Because those population policies are inadvertently or indirectly aimed at Muslims in the country. That brings unessential social divisions in the society. Hence, that is a social function or sorry, latent function or latent dysfunction in the society. Further, the lesson to be drawn is that the decision on children is best made by the family, which can be nudged towards making choices that ensure stable population growth. Yes, rightly, the decision on children is part of family system or family institutions. In our social institutions, we have various institutions like family, politics, etc. Now, this decision on number of children or number of kids to be given birth to is not something which to be decided by the political system. It has to be decided by the social system, and in that social system also, family is the particular institution which has to decide on the number of children to give birth to. It is certainly not the domain of the political system to interfere here. In Parsons functional prerequisites, we have four systems, that is economic system, political system, cultural system, social system, etc. Now, whenever there are disturbances to any system, that particular system tries to adjust itself or adapt to the conditions by reorienting its strategies. Here also, social system is one such system which adopts itself. It does not need any help from political system to interfere here in this particular example. That can be drawn in social perspective from this particular article. Now, as this article is largely related to paper 2, and paper 2 hardly require any theoretical discussion, I'm not including any notes regarding this article. Hence, moving on to the next article, it says terrorism is the most serious threat to global peace, says Rajnath, stating that the geostrategic location of India makes it both a Eurasian land power as well as a stakeholder in the Indo-Pacific. Defense Minister Rajnath Singh on Wednesday termed terrorism the most serious threat to international peace and security, while also cautioning against non-traditional security threats against the backdrop of the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, this particular point, that means non-traditional security threats, is highly relevant in our social syllabus, because in our syllabus we have a unit called social movements. Under that social movements unit, we have a chapter called, or we have a topic called revolution. Now, terrorism particularly can be categorized under that revolution, but the new age revolutions, that means these new age threats to national security, which are perceived as terrorist threats, are less related to our conventional knowledge on revolution, because what we have learned in revolution is that revolution is trying to bring fundamental change in political power or organizational structures in short period of time, when population rises up in revolt against the authorities. That means when it tries to bring radical change. But here it is certainly trying to bring organizational structures, changes in organizational structures, because COVID-19 pandemic, for example, has brought changes in organizational structure of society, in particular economy, if we think somewhat broadly. That means it has certainly changed social structures in the society and economic structures in the society, but it was not something done by the population itself. It is something done by the nature, if we say, or if we be somewhat skeptical about it, we can say that it is something done by another country or our neighboring country upon the whole world. But this is not certainly done by population as a whole, and that is an important shift of perception of revolution in the society, or we can say that new age threat. Here, defense minister says it is non-traditional security threat. COVID-19 pandemic is. If we consider theories of revolution, Karl Marx says contradictions sourced from economic changes or changes in the force of production will result in revolution. But in this particular example, COVID-19 pandemic is not something sourced from economic changes or changes in forces of production. It is something other than that. It is because of higher technological power or higher knowledge or resource in the field of biotechnology has resulted in this. Hence, that's why economy is not something related to the revolution in this particular example. That's why defense minister has termed it as non-conventional threat to national security. This is a shift from Karl Marx perspective. Well, James Davis says that it is not actually contradiction from economic source from economic changes, but improvement in the actual conditions, improvement in the conditions of people will result in raising aspirations of people about their lives and raising expectations of the government in relation to their lives. But when the actual progress is eventually slowed down, those people will turn frustrated against the society and they turn against the government, and that results in revolution according to James Davis. But in this particular COVID-19 example, James Davis theory also has failed, because COVID-19 pandemic has not something related to improvement in personal lives or rising aspirations or something other than that. Hence, James Davis has also failed to explain this COVID-19 pandemic. That means non-conventional threat or non-conventional terrorism. We have seen many people terming this COVID-19 pandemic as bioterrorism. That means, whatever conventional knowledge we have on terrorism, or whatever sociological knowledge, theoretical knowledge we have on terrorism, has to be changed a bit in relation to COVID-19 pandemic. What Charles Tilly says about terrorism or revolution is that revolution has certain organization to function. When that organization has been established, revolutionaries try to mobilize the resources. They try to work in tandem with other organizations or other people who have common interests to share with, and they wait for particular opportunity and they attack in that particular opportunity. But here COVID-19 pandemic has no organization in particular. It has not mobilized resources. It has not gathered in the people who are having common interest, and it has not waited for opportunity also. It has just striked away the whole world, and it has cause damage to the whole world in terms of social and economic structures. That's why Charles Tilly has also failed to explain this kind of revolution or this kind of terrorism in particular, this bioterrorism. Hence, this is a non-conventional security threat or non-conventional terrorist attack upon the nations, and this has to be this demands the particular sociological study to come out with theories that satisfy this particular COVID-19 pandemic. All the existing theories fail to explain this COVID-19 pandemic in particular. The article says this was a warning sign of how non-traditional security challenges like pandemics, climate change, food security, water security, and associated societal disruptions could impact national and international landscape. Now, regarding pandemic, we can say that it is a kind of bioterrorism, whereas regarding climate change, food security, water security, these are something unrelated to society, which are external to the society, but they certainly cause disruptions in the society, and hence they cannot be studied in sociological perspective, but their impact on the society can be studied in social perspective. Their impact is certainly something unrelated to economics. Now here Karl Marx says in his economic determinism concept, there are two structures. One is economic base structure and the other one is socio-political superstructure. Now what all is related to production or what all is related to means of production come under economic base structure, and what all that do not have any connection to the production process come under socio-political superstructure. Now, Karl Marx says economic base structure is what determines socio-political superstructure. But here COVID-19 pandemic is something unrelated to economic base structure. It is something external to the economic structure because it is something medical in nature or biotechnological in nature. Hence, that is unrelated to economic base structure, but that has determined the socio-political superstructure from the last 2 years among the whole world. That means Karl Marx economic determinism has failed in this particular aspect. It is not economy which determines the socio-political superstructure. It is something unrelated to economy. It is something external to the economy. That's why Karl Marx has been criticized by various various scholars. Sorry, Jayaprakash Narayan says philanthropy, love, affection, compassion, all these have a place in the society or social transactions. Karl Popper terms Karl Marx as an economic reductionist because Karl Marx failed to see things in broader perspective. He has confined his view so narrow that he could see only economic relations in the society. Now, there are some external factors also which influence social and political structures. And here COVID-19 pandemic is one such example. Now, that's all we have for today. If you like the content, please like, share, and subscribe to Statecraft IAS. Thank you for listening. Have a nice day.